I cannot get the best value out of my AI because the data isn't talking to each other.
And that's going to really evolve how we actually even Google search.
Future is already here, but it's not evenly distributed.
Let's get started. Welcome to Grey Matter in Code, brought to you by the Business Technology Club at Cholet. Grey Matter in Code is a podcast and platform designed to spark open conversations with thought leaders across industries and markets, people driving change and shaping what's next through the decisions they're making today. Today on our episode, we have Aaqib Azeem, Google Canada's lead expert in AI and machine learning. Before joining Google, he led technology strategy at Wisdom.ai, a Toronto-based conversational AI company where he played a key role in developing a SaaS analytics product that contributed to the company's acquisition. Earlier in his career, Aaqib was a management consultant at Deloitte, advising Fortune 500 companies on AI strategy and data transformation. He holds a master's in AI management and a bachelor's in mechatronics engineering. Aaqib, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. And maybe for our listeners, you can tell us a bit about yourself and what you do in your current role at Google.
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently the subject matter expert of all things AI and machine learning at Google. I support the Google Cloud practice. I primarily work with large enterprises supporting their AI initiatives. So we kind of work alongside them in terms of their objectives. Obviously, we leverage a lot of the Google technology within our cloud practice to be able to enable some of those use cases for them.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much for setting the context. Maybe drawing from your experiences, let's dive into the world of creation, like how AI is being used for creating products, right? Mm-hmm. How do you think AI is being used to integrate in product development life cycles? What tangible benefits or challenges are companies facing in particular?
So within product development, the kind of main challenge is productivity, right? How do you enable engineering teams and product teams to move faster and deliver on more of the functionality of their solutions, right? And this comes back to how do you actually make developers and even designers more efficient? It's one aspect is providing the information and getting access to the information as quickly as possible. But the other element is being able to really kind of think through the problem, see best practices, use, not really reinvent the wheel every single time, but use what's out there to actually create something net new. And this is where AI is actually really strong in terms of supporting these users in terms of either building out the application from scratch. So, the whole aspect of using templates, but now, leveraging AI to actually build out the, 20%, 50% of what you're trying to do, and then allowing you the remainder of the time to focus on, the critical thinking elements of actually building out the application, figuring out how actually this is going to be useful, rather than, putting some template or format together to, adhere to your existing practices. So it's really going to be part of speeding up the whole process to production, and you're going to see this more and more in the development space. So how do you compete with businesses that are using automation like AI for building their products and kind of supporting their users quicker and being able to test out and iterate as well, right? So these are kind of things that you kind of need to think of how to actually leverage the technology in terms of being able to move faster in the market.
Yeah, that's definitely a great insight and a perspective on the kind of impact AI is having on product development. I want to shift gears a little bit and focus on the world of data, right? In what specific ways is AI enhancing data analytic processes? In particular, what new insights or efficiencies are emerging as a result here?
Yeah, good question. What I've been talking to a lot of people in the data analytics space, and they're all a little worried, right? They're seeing these AI solutions, these AI agents, even producing insights and creating reports by single prompts that are being sent to these models. So why do you need these fancy dashboards and these analytical tools, right? That's always kind of the question. I think of it as less of a risk to the business, but more of just a disruption factor for how analytics is consumed. And with these analytics AI agents and these tools that are able to produce the insights that you're looking for almost instantaneously, you kind of want to focus on, as an analytics person, you want to focus on the critical elements of the data itself, right? First, understanding how the data is structured, what elements are needed, what's actually available in the system. And those are crucial because for you to be able to understand the outputs of these AI models, you still need a data person to be able to do that. Everyone kind of says, it's automating and replacing these jobs. I don't think so. Like if you think of, historically even, before the calculator, you had mathematicians. Did mathematicians disappear after the calculator was invented? No, right? Like they're using this as a tool to be able to move faster, and you still need the experts in the space to be able to understand what is coming as an output and make sure that it's actually useful and using their business logic to bring it to the business.
Yeah, and it's fascinating how AI has revolutionized data analysis, right? And you touch base on something important there, AI agents. But before we get into AI agents, I want to talk about something which has been gaining a lot of traction these days, which is multimodality. Mm-hmm. Can you explain the concept of multimodality in the context of AI and what types of data are involved and why do you think it's so important there?
Yeah, sure. So multimodality is just giving these models access to more than just text, right? LLMs have been around for quite some time, and those are large language models. Multimodality now includes voice, so audio as an element, imagery, so photos, and then video. So including these additional streams, and there's now even more different types of modalities that are also being included, but those are the three primary additional ones that we're including as part of these systems. So now you're kind of allowing these models to have more context in the world, right? So being able to listen into our world, being able to see into our world, and then also be able to speak into our applications, right? So this becomes really useful because previously you would have to give the context of everything that's actually happening for the model to be able to pick up bits and pieces. And that's really changing. Now you don't actually need to give any context. You just allow the model to listen in and understand what's actually happening. And then when you provide it a prompt, it just naturally knows, the context of what you're kind of saying and where you're at and what you're doing.
Yeah, that definitely clears the context of multimodal AI. Just building on that, how do you envision multimodal AI transforming industries or even affecting our day-to-day lives?
It's going to be huge. We're already seeing a bit of this with some of the releases on smartphones, where now you can, turn on your Pixel and access your camera and kind of show these models what you're looking at, and it'd be able to digest and be able to produce results, right? And here, simple examples is, I have, and this is again, not even specifically for an industry, just like the general user. Like we see kids using this to help them with their homework, pointing their phones towards a math equation or a problem set, and then asking, obviously how to answer the question, but then also like step by step, what are, get me started in the first, couple steps of what I actually need to do. So, helping them actually complete those tasks. But then you can think of this as, extrapolate into the larger world and, leveraging in healthcare with being able to examine x-rays and medical imaging, but then also in manufacturing with being able to report on risks within a site. So there's all these different elements where imagery is very important, and allowing these models to be able to understand what's actually happening in the real world, similar to how we process this image, is going to really revolutionize how we actually work with these AI solutions.
Yeah, and I think clearly multimodal AI has a very promising future, right? And I want to talk about something which you earlier touched upon, right? AI agents. What exactly are AI agents and how do they differ from traditional AI models?
Yeah, the way I kind of think of AI agents, and I advise my clients to also look at them is, they're kind of digital companions of the future, right? So they are solutions that are going to work alongside you to support you in terms of whatever workflow or use case that you're working on. And the only way that they're going to be truly useful is they have autonomy to be able to complete tasks on their own, right? And that's what actually makes them different. They're connected to your world, similar to how you can work in different systems. These solutions also will be working across applications, across systems to be able to complete tasks, right? So more than just, a Gemini or a ChatGPT where it just gives you an answer, being able to execute on that information, being able to go into, your, as simple as going into your inbox and, more than just drafting the email, being able to schedule those outputs of when those emails need to be sent, summarize inputs before it actually comes into your inbox, really taking a proactive approach in terms of supporting, us is going to be where these AI agents really stand to make a big differentiation.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a very helpful distinction. Maybe for our listeners, can you share an example of a sophisticated AI agent that is in action today, maybe?
Sure. AI agents are kind of all over the place already. You probably interacted with one and you haven't even realized it. The big kind of, the cool elements of these agents themselves are, they are, we keep talking about AGI, right? And even like super intelligence, right? These models and these agents are already at that level. They're past general intelligence, right? But they're very, very good at specific areas that they're focused on, right? So in the case of, a complex agent, right? Think of data science, right? And think of what data scientists have to do on a regular basis. We've deployed a bunch of data science agents as an example that sit alongside, within Colab to be able to support you to be able to complete some of this mundane data science activities that you would normally be able to do, and then also ask questions because these are specialized agents, right? And then there's other activities where they are more than just assisting you and supporting you in your day-to-day. They are the experts, right? Like they are PhD level experts on a specific topic that they've been trained on and can complete those tasks for you. So you don't actually need to know anything about the information. It's instead of reaching out to a colleague that's an expert, you would actually be leveraging and reaching out to these agents. We just deployed, obviously the deep research agents are very popular these days. Google has released a pretty advanced AI agent on the deep research side, which leverages our latest 2.0 reasoning, 2.5 reasoning models. And if you look at that specific agent that's going out in the web and searching and finding information for you and distilling it down so that it's digestible, right? That's a very complex task, and there's been tons of iterations of that deep research specific agents. But now it's getting to a point where it's working similar to how a researcher actually works in terms of breaking down topics, determining what's actually important, what's not important, prioritizing the information that's coming in, and then being able to distill it down to a research paper that it's actually producing at the end.
Right. Yeah, those are some great examples. Aaqib, I want to segue into a new topic, search engines. I know Google has been a pioneer in this space for such a long time, right? With the ever-evolving landscape of search engines, can you explain how modern search engine algorithms prioritize content today?
Yeah, so everyone is, I think ever since Google became the top search engine, everyone has been wondering, okay, when does Google search disappear, right? And when does it become something else? I don't necessarily think search is going to go anywhere, right? The way we're interacting with search is going to definitely change. And you're already seeing that as in the evolution of Google search, right? When you're looking up a question, you now see an AI summary at the top where it gives you some information in terms of what you're looking for. But at the end of the day, what these models are still not good at is being able to give a variety of different information without being very specific in terms of, okay, here's an output, right? They're not that great at that. They're very much, here is what we find is the most relevant and most useful information, and just believe us. And it's sometimes hard to, right? You want to trust the AI model in terms of the output it's giving, but you want a variety of information. And search still is the main application to be able to do that, right? To be able to look through all the different information that's out there, whether it's something that is related to you, maybe even something that you weren't really looking for as you're kind of looking through it and learning more about the topic. And you're going to see a little bit of more of a hybrid approach, right? So being able to look through information and making search more accessible is going to now be focused a little bit more on the task that you're hoping to achieve, right? Rather than, finding the information you're looking for. Now that you found this information, what were you planning on doing? What information were you trying to extract and complete the task? And you're going to see now these kind of AI agents become more common as part of this search experience. As simple as, we have one of our latest projects called Project Mariner that just sits on the browser itself and actually, is guiding you and walking you through the steps. But has access to what you're looking at, so can help you direct in terms of the steps that need to be accomplished to be able to get the information. But then also being able to understand what you're trying to do, right? So I think the big issue right now still is how do you take this search information, right, getting these outputs and then transforming that information to get the final output. And this is where these AI agents are going to really excel.
Right. I think those are some great points. And it's amazing how the landscape has evolved over the years, right? You touch base on Google search, which is a traditional model, and Gemini, which is a conversational model. What do you think are the major differences between both of them?
Yeah, I'd say they're going to merge, right? But traditionally right now, the kind of the main difference with Google search is you're sending a single input, a single query, and you're getting a response. Versus Gemini, it's a multi-turn approach in terms of how you're getting responses, but it's very much a singular output in terms of what you're getting. So you can ask it, a question gives you an output or summarized of a bunch of different outputs, but it's very much one context. There's no going and searching. But that's why the follow-up elements are really critical, because you can follow up and ask and refine your search further. And now the merging of these two is kind of already happening, where you are not only searching to be able to get all the information and then be able to determine which route you want to go with this information, but then allowing you to do the multi-turns in the traditional search element. And that's going to really evolve how we actually even Google search through information.
Right. Interesting. And I think those are some very valid and great points. I just want to follow up on that. As more and more people are using AI chatbots to find information, how do you see this changing the way we search online? In particular, what should businesses do? What should businesses be doing to make sure they are visible?
Yeah, absolutely. So businesses should kind of focus their energy on knowing that these systems exist, right? These scrapers and indexers have been around for a long time, but now with the agents that are now going to be looking through your websites and figuring out what's the relevant information to actually bring back to their consumers, make sure that data is optimized for these models, right? And that there's an exercise there where you have to be able to figure out, is my website having the right information in the right format for these models to be able to really take value and get all the information they're looking for, but then also making sure that people that are just visiting your website are also getting the right information. And there's different approaches to be able to handle that. But making sure that all information is accessible, right? Previously, you would paywall it or set it up in a way that it's requiring the end customer to actually reach out to you to get additional information. you are at a disadvantage because now you're essentially having some of your competitors that are providing all that information and providing all the detailed information, where now these models, if they're doing comparison analysis or competitive analysis, they're able to get all the outputs that they're looking for, and it looks like you don't have all the elements, which isn't necessarily true, right? Like, it's just you probably haven't made it accessible. So there's a little bit of a decision you have to make in terms of how much you make accessible to your customers, how much you make accessible to these AI agents themselves, so that it will in turn actually help you in bringing those customers over to your platform, your solution.
Right. And those are some great insights. And so finally, what do you see? What trends do you see in the future of search engines? Like, is AGI or ASI going to have a huge impact on them?
Oh, 100%. We're already seeing a little bit of that today, where people are using these kind of conversational LLMs to be able to get answers that they're looking for instantaneously. But at the end of the day, behind the scenes of these models, it's still going to be the search engine that actually goes, searches, and finds this information for you, right? And holds that repository of that information. The UI might change in terms of what's actually front facing and how you actually interact. But very much these solutions are going to evolve, especially with the newer generation. There's a lot of elements of leveraging voice in asking questions versus, typing out, what your inquiry is and searching it that way. And making sure that multimodal is a huge element as part of search as a whole, but then also leveraging agents to be able to complete tasks with these different mechanisms. So, what we're going to see is an evolution where these AGI systems are going to be kind of the UX UI element of search, and then supporting how you actually get this information and how it's digested for consumption.
Yeah, and I think you briefly touched base on AGI. There's a traction around ASI, artificial superintelligence. There is some exciting use cases that you are personally excited for?
100%. The question also becomes like, is ASI ever going to happen, right? And that's a big question in the industry right now. I think for me personally, we are going to reach AGI, ASI to a certain degree where we are not even going to truly acknowledge that we've reached that point, right? I feel like the goalpost is going to continuously keep moving, right? And this is where I'm less focused on, how does this futuristic solution going to really impact the world, but then I'm more focused on the outcomes of businesses today and users like us, and how we engage with this this piece of software, whether it's agents or something else in the future, and how they're actually going to be supporting us in terms of bringing us the information and completing our use cases, and taking care of a lot of that mundane tasks. And a lot of the times you actually don't need ASI to be able to do those type of activities.
Yeah, I think that's a very fascinating perspective. Aaqib, I want to zoom out a little bit and talk about organizations using AI. How do you think organizations can effectively better prepare themselves, their strategies, and their workforce to adapt to the ever-evolving landscape of AI?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that we, focus on specifically even in Google Cloud, with businesses always looking to, leverage this technology. And the way we kind of position it is have a look at your existing use cases where you can break your priorities down in terms of which ones are automatable with AI and which ones, require a little bit more of a human element, a human touch, right? And once you've digested that information down there, break it out into these chunks where now you can infuse AI into these use cases to be able to see if you can achieve the goal you're looking for, right? Because the objective here is you want to be able to automate the task while there is some element of, there might not be perfect accuracy or, customer satisfaction. You don't want to reduce that. So have a look at all the different KPIs that are associated with that specific exercise, and then be able to slowly automate task by task, use case by use case, and then work your way up to like workflows, right? And how much of your workflow are you able to automate? And businesses should be leveraging this today, right? If you're not using the technology already in your business, you're behind, right? You are essentially giving your competitors an advantage in terms of leveraging an automation tool or automation technology as a whole to bypass and get ahead, where you are still very much focused on being able to do everything meticulously through a human. So really think through what those examples are, and kind of create a plan to be able to roll that out, because if you don't, you will be left behind.
Right. And would you have any particular advice to business leaders who are navigating through AI? Should they be focusing on the right idea or the right data foundation model, or is it completely different?
Yeah, I'd say like if you're a small, medium business, it's very different than large enterprise, of course. I would say, but just generally across businesses, you should focus on your business objectives, right? Like you shouldn't be trying to build the next model or fine tune these models to a point where you actually have to own this solution and hire data scientists to be able to manage this, because a lot of this technology is being democratized. So it just becomes an element of where can you take things off the shelf that has already been deployed and been proven by people within your industry, because there's tons of use cases out there that have already been deployed that are publicly available that you can see. So choose the ones that are tried and proven, and then focus on those first, right? I would say then slowly work your way up to the more challenging use cases that are very much specifically for your industry, and then you can put the resources and the energy towards that. But start with the low-hanging fruit, because if you're not able to achieve those earlier on, it's going to be very hard for you to do the customized solution that's only going to give you the advantage that you're kind of looking for.
Right. Yeah, I think those are some great insights. I want to touch base on something new. What role would you say cloud is going to have an effect on AI? Will they be working hand in hand, or what can we expect from that?
So cloud is just going to be the engine that these models actually run on, right? So just kind of think of it as the resources and the management of these AI solutions and where they live, and that's kind of how cloud is going to work alongside these AI solutions. Similarly at Google Cloud works very closely with DeepMind to be able to, DeepMind does a lot of the research and builds a lot of the type of solutions that Google Cloud takes and puts it into production and makes it accessible to customers, where now they're able to consume this technology that's coming out, maybe even at a more research early stage level, so that they can actually work on something that's production level, right? And that's going to continue, right? So this relationship between how do we actually build something that's going to be cost optimized, that's going to actually bring ROI to the business, rather than just a fancy science experiment, is where these businesses are going to work hand in hand.
Right. And finally, Aaqib, I want to know, what are some of the most exciting or potentially disruptive trends that you foresee in the future of AI?
Yeah. If you're watching Black Mirror as an example, you're probably already noticing some of the elements in the earlier episodes starting to happen in real life, which is kind of crazy. And these trends are going to fluctuate, right? Like right now, hottest thing is vibe coding, right? Like how do I build a business or program stuff without being, a programmer, and be able to do that by myself one-man show, and everyone's kind of asking, when do we get to the single-person unicorn, right? Like, that's inevitable. And it's also exciting to see, like, now you don't need these like crazy large teams and resources to be able to build out very cool leading edge pieces of technology. So it's super exciting to kind of see where we're heading there. But the element of these AI solutions, right, these AI agents, how they're going to integrate with our day-to-day, right? Whether it's as simple as, the digital media that we're consuming is going to heavily start becoming a lot, focused on AI generation from a cost perspective, but then also from a quality perspective in terms of what we see, how we interact with devices. They'll be infused in every single piece of technology that we actually use. And then also kind of thinking where we're heading in terms of the future, leveraging this AI technology to be able to coexist and support us as part of our day-to-day lives in terms of the tasks that we're completing, but then also from a business perspective, and that being one AI solution, right? We always keep thinking about the objective of like our personal AI assistant, right? And we're getting closer and closer there, right? Like eventually we won't even be having this podcast. Our AI assistants would actually be communicating our informations and thoughts to each other, right? So you get to this point where you want to be able to leverage this technology, use this information now, but also understand how this information is going to be, digested in a different way and consumed in a different way that you're not currently doing, and that's kind of super exciting to see where we're heading, and how these pieces of technology are going to really change our existing communication paths and our workflows.
Yeah, I think Black Mirror was a great example. We might probably see some of those episodes coming to life pretty soon. But I also want to talk about, maybe for our listeners, let's talk about professionals and individuals who are trying to break into this field. Would you have any recommendations, like what educational paths, programs, or any certifications that they need to follow to have a rigid foundation in AI?
Yeah, like I think that's still, I still get a lot of programmers being like, should I continue learning how to program with vibe coding happening and with these AI agents that are focused on code generation? And what I always say is, yes, we still need the experts, right? So still have a good Python, R background, so understand how that's going to, you're going to be an expert and understand how it would work behind the scenes is still key, even with a lot of this moving towards English being like the programming language of the future. But I would say like still focus on learning a lot of those elements, but then also now shift focus in terms of your day-to-day life, where you should be using Gemini and ChatGPT and Claude and you name it, right? You should be using that in your day-to-day basis, because you can understand like where the technology is today, what it can do, what it can't do, right? And that would allow you to understand the limitations of the technology. And then obviously, if you want to get deeper, there's a lot of free training available. Google provides it as part of like Google Skills and certifications around machine learning. So you can learn some of the latest, even at the highest level without any programming knowledge, how to leverage technology, how to put things together, but then also dive deeper into being an expert and, actually having the programming knowledge to put these solutions together is going to be key, because at the end of the day, this is still software. These are still systems. Someone's going to have to build them. Someone's going to have to maintain them. And we're going to need experts in all those areas in the future.
Absolutely. I think those are some great takeaways. Aaqib, before we wrap up, any book, podcast, or an article that you would recommend to our listeners that personally inspired you, or you think more people should be exploring?
I'll give you a couple for each. Books, I don't have the attention span anymore, but the last good one that I kind of read was Life 3.0 by Max T. Great outlook for where AI is heading. Maybe even a little scary in terms of the outlook where we're going. So a good kind of future state of AI. Podcasts, there's a whole slew of podcasts out there on the AI side. If you want to go general, there's like the hard forks of the world by New York Times, but there's also more bespoke ones that are focused a little bit more on the technical edge. Like Training Data is a good one by Sequoia Capital. Even like the AI podcast from NVIDIA is a good podcast. Like there's so many different sources these days. So I would say listen to them, see what's of interest to you, and then, determine from each one of these, how do you actually put it as part of your existing schedule, right? How do you stay informed in this world of AI? Like how, and then how do you actually leverage the things that you're learning from these solutions into your day-to-day, even if you're not an AI expert or an AI specialist, right? You don't need to be. And that's the real value of this technology.
Yeah. Aaqib, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. We touched base on so many topics like AI agents, multimodality, the future of AI, and we really hope that our listeners are able to walk away with some great takeaways. On behalf of the Business Technology Club, I want to sincerely thank you for coming here and sharing your insights. Until next time, thank you for tuning into Grey Matter and Code.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.